this winter's journey begins, it surely isn't just in this garage. It may have been on Anzac Day this year. I had marched with other veterans when a friend invited me to a service in the afternoon to commemorate the Frontier Wars. I really don't like that term, and maybe we'll talk about that a bit later. But to consider what it was for the First Nations people of this continent to defend their countries. And it got me thinking about a lot of things. It got me thinking about my childhood on my grandparents' farm, and maybe that's where the journey actually begins. It's a place called Woongoolba, and in 57 years I had never stopped to think, where's that name come from? What does it mean? I think it's a Yugambeh word, and I think that farm was in the very northeastern corner of Yugambeh country. But we never knew, we never asked. History began in about the 1850s when Lutheran German settlers came there. But what became of the people whose land that was and is? I need to ask some questions. So I want to go and talk to my sister. She lives in what's now called Newcastle. I'm going to take the long way around, out through Western Queensland and Western New South Wales. So this winter, the journey is through 15 countries in 2 states on one big island.
I live on Gubby Gubby land, Queensland's Sunshine Coast in Caloundra. Even in 10 years, it's gone from seaside town to part of a city extending from Noosa to the Glasshouse Mountains. What was it like when Matthew Flinders sailed past? 5 minutes from home is Queensland's first double diamond dynamic cloverleaf interchange flyover whatever onto Highway 1. I won't see that highway again until the last leg home up the coast. The bike is a 96 model BMW R1100 GS. It marked Beamer's return to the Boxer engine, the first of the big adventure dual sport beasts. It's got 105,000 on the clock. I'm a 1961 model, originally from North Queensland. Lord knows how many Ks on my clock. Let's just say this is a grand adventure. I expect more than 2,000 kilometres will include radar traps as well as tourist traps, but I'm looking forward to beautiful towns just like Udlo. Yes, like so many places, it's a version of an Aboriginal word, a Gubby Gubby word here, freshwater eel. Signs point to Malula and so on. But mostly the signs are about a white colonial history, the built environment, community halls and cenotaphs. Even the trees that were here before whitefellas have plaques to commemorate settlers. Now there's a word. At a time when a quarter of Australia's population changes its address every 18 months. What is our sense of place and belonging? This expedition won't be like Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor's Long Way Round, but thank Scott Russell for the box DVD set anyway. Heinrich and I have toured interstate before, but it's always about how much gear and how many kilos do I really need. Am I going to discover something the mechanic missed the hard way? Am I going to discover how little skill I have on unsealed roads? And I already know that recording this inward and outward journey will not be the same as travelling with an ABC camera crew. I think the way we'll set this thing up as we travel along, and by the way, I can't guarantee that you're going to get a new episode each night. It may well be that having spent a cold day on the bike, I'd rather sit by a pub somewhere and by a fire in a pub and drink some port than be editing. But we shall see how we go. But I think what we'll do in each episode is probably try to ask 3 or 4 of the same questions. And for those of you who are about the bike, and a lot of this is about the bike, there'll be a Farkle question, there'll be a Farkle of the day, favourite Farkle. For those of you not familiar with that term, it's both noun and verb, and we'll explain that as the trip progresses. It's from an ancient Teutonic language, Farkling. There we are. So we'll do that. There'll be a bit about the road and a bit about the bike. I think there'll be, like the big question for me, will be almost a where's Wally, a find Phil question. Where do I belong in this country? In whatever nation I'm travelling through, in whatever place I find myself, what's my sense of how I might belong? Do I belong? Those are good sort of questions. Then there'll be something about that place. There'll be something about a spirit of place or a particular point along the journey. And I think, we'll probably also see who we can find as we travel along each day. Maybe a little bit of almost an examine each day. Ask the same questions and see how they change as we get along. So stay with it, enjoy, I hope you do, and keep an eye out for the blog site. I think we're going to call the blog, I Bought My BMW from an Anglican Nudist.